Hi, my name is Kai Cropper and today I am doing the Unit 12, the Development and Organisation of Sport. In this presentation I will be discussing how sport has developed throughout the UK. I will provide a timeline of the development of sport dating back to the agricultural period through to the Industrial Revolution. I will outline the influence of war and public schools on the development of sport in the UK. The agricultural period. In the agricultural society of medieval and early modern Britain and Ireland, existence was mainly subsistence living off the land to survive. There would not be time to take part in leisure activities as on a day-to-day basis. Hard physical work was a norm for many, including children. On market days or at fairs, there would be more of an opportunity to pursue leisure activities like drinking, dancing, cockfighting, bear baiting, dog fighting, gambling and bear fist fighting. The local hostelry would be the main focus of village life and often the place where people might take place in more gentle pursuits such as billiards, bowls and skittles. The rich were able to play and travel and hunt on neighbouring estates or went to the coast to sail. They also played tennis. Ordinary people were not allowed to hunt as it was prevented by game laws which made poaching a crime for the poorer peasants. There was also sports like mob football and demonstrations of skill in pursuits such as archery. The Industrial Revolution. In the 19th century, cities grew, but life was harder. Conditions were often cramped and unsanitary. Work was physically demanding. This involved work such as mining, weaving, and other factory work of labouring on building sites. And there was little time off and no additional earnings available to spend on leisure activities. Despite mechanisation, children were still being put into work to increase family income. Not until the Education Act of 1870 was it compulsory for them to go to school instead. In cities, sport and leisure opportunities were fewer and different from country sports, with activities for the working class being spectator sports such as boxing, wrestling, rowing, and many more activities. These activities had a gambling dimension to them and were blood sports brought in from the historical country pursuits such as dogfighting. The public school system. Public schools were so called now because they were originally founded to provide an education outside the houses of the rich. The schools and their endowments increasingly became used by the nobility, turning the public school system into the one we know today. This system grew in the early 19th century and sports flourished within the schools, especially rugby, cricket, tennis and football. For the schools that were wealthy and had extensive playing rules were made to help structure the sports, and these form the basis of rules and regulations today. Public schools made a great contribution to sports, with old boys carrying sports traditions and values around the globe. In the poorer Victorian slums, factory workers and their children had little leisure to speak of other street or pub games. Their working week would be close to 70 hours, however there were many more public holidays than now. Bills went through the Parliament in the late 1800s, which gave us the bank holidays we have today. The Victorians were also very generous, creating many parks and gardens in many cities, along with libraries, heaters and playing fields, and Victorian baths. Rationalisation and regulation. The lower class would play football or rugby, whereas the middle class would start swimming lessons, and the upper class would do sports such as horse riding. They started to promote rationalisation to encourage sports that were more organised and structured. This meant that sports were more organised so they knew exactly what they were doing instead of making things up. This had opposition as the working class preferred sports such as bare knuckle fighting. They also enjoyed drinking and gambling. The influence of public schools created a general trend towards the regulation of how sports were played. This was called codification. The 20th century. The start of the last century saw a period of great flux in Britain. With the First World War, the Depression, followed after by the Second World War. Between the wars, people were determined to enjoy themselves. There were bigger sporting events such as the FA Cup, the Oxford and Cambridge Boat Race, and the derbies of Wimbledon. This gave sport and leisure the chance to flourish. Development of sport. After the Second World War, hours of work shortened, which further means they're getting more leisure time and wages are increased. Working class was quickly filled with amusement and entertainment, but also with some sport matches taking on the more commercial approach that we see today in technology. In contrast to urban sport and leisure, interest grew in the outdoors. This is such as transport was improved, people could get to places in sport games. The rich people made the grand tour of the resorts in Europe, spreading sport and interests and health interests such as skiing and climbing. There was sufficient interest in the winter sport activities for the Winter Olympics to be created in 1924.